today I am doing an all about brow video. This is my do's and don'ts about doing brows, and these are more vintage style brows. Obviously there's different rules when you're doing different brows for different makeup applications, but this is what I do for vintage brows, and I've picked up a lot of tips and tricks along the way doing makeup on other girls and kind of seeing how other girls shape their eyebrows or do their eyebrows and kind of figuring out what I love and what I don't love, and also the reasons why people are making the mistakes that they're making. So hopefully this gives you a good guideline of where to start with your eyebrows, and if you guys have any tricks to share with each other, do it in the comments below, but otherwise, let's get started. Okay, so I actually use Anastasia Beverly Hills and this Benefit brush. So Anastasia Beverly Hills is a brow pomade, and I like to use this because it goes on heavy, but you can spread it light, so it's heavy enough to cover your brows, but it's not so heavy like a pencil that it's going to be really aggressive, but it's also not so light that when you have black eyebrows like me, they just come straight through it. And then I use this angled brow brush by Benefit that's got a little spoolie at the end so you can smooth your little unruly brows. And sometimes when I'm feeling extra saucy, I use this Anastasia Beverly Hills brow gel as well, because I do have kind of unruly brows, so this keeps them in place. Pretty basic when it comes to my brow products. So the first thing you want to make sure is where you're starting your brows. You don't want to start them too far in or too far out. So obviously I have brows, so I'm not going to be able to show too much starting them too far out. But the one thing you want to make sure is that you don't over pluck your brows. I do not pluck my brows in here at all. I pluck the random strays that happen here, but if you pluck anything out of right here where your brows start, is not going to be natural. Same thing, I don't really pluck anything on top. I only pluck on the bottom just to give a little bit of an arch. You can get your brows waxed or threaded or whatever you want to do. I pluck them because I like to keep control of my shape. But it's totally up to you. Just make sure you don't over pluck, over tweeze, or over wax. So this is what happens when you start them too far in. I think this is what girls do when they're doing the ombre brow. They start it so far in so that it kind of fades away. It's too much brow. Then you have way too much space between right here and your arch, and then not enough space from your arch to the end of your brow. So make sure you don't start it too far in the center. And then also you're gonna have a weird unibrow. Where your brow should start, which is where my natural brow starts, is if you're drawing an indivisible with liberty and justice for all, invisible line from the corner of your nose to the corner of your eye. If you just lay your little spoolie right there, that's where your eyebrow should start. Okay, so when you're starting your eyebrows, you want to make sure that you don't make them too round or too blunt. So as you can see here, I've just sort of given it a nice edge, and then the ends are sort of rounded. It's not super square. So what I'm seeing a lot with vintage girls is this, where they're super duper square and really giant and blunt. And you can see the difference between the two. This is just a little bit more natural. Another thing you want to make sure not to do is make them too round. So another thing that I've seen is this. Now it's harder to do them round with a brush, but girls that use pencils tend to make the inside really, really round like that. And again, same thing, it's just not quite as natural as just going with the natural shape of your brows. Now, along with rounding the inside, you also don't want to round where your brow starts. So if you can see on this brow, it's really straight. It basically is just a straight line right up to my arch. It's really hard not to raise my eyebrow when I'm talking about my eyebrows, but it just goes whoop in a straight line. This is what happens sometimes, especially girls that overpluck. If you have more hair down here and not enough in your arch, you end up with this weird sort of rounded C shape, this little guy. And from the front, it doesn't look that weird, but from the side, it looks super weird. And you see it goes whoop down there. So make sure that you keep this line really straight so that you don't have that sort of dip down in the center. So another thing that happens, which is actually easier when you don't have natural brows, but girls tend to draw them really round. So instead of drawing an arch, they just go whoop and make them really round all the way around. So there's no arch really, it's just sort of I call them wow eyebrows, where you look surprised all the time. And this is what happens when you struggle to find that arch, and so instead you're drawing them really round. Now mine are really thick because I do actually have natural eyebrows, but what tends to happen is girls do these when they have no eyebrows and then they're just trying to struggle to find a shape. Another thing is drawing your eyebrows too thick or too thin. So too thin, I mean obviously like I've said before, I do have natural brows, but there is a way to do them too thin, and that would just be if I just followed my natural brow, because then I wouldn't really be shaping them. So not only would the shape be wrong, but then they're too thin. And we know that the pencil thin Drew Barrymore eyebrows are out. So you can see just by me drawing them too thin takes the shape out of them. It just changes the shape of my face. So when they're a little bit thicker, it's more pleasing to the eye. Also, thicker eyebrows tend to make you look younger, but you don't want to go in the opposite direction. And that would be too thick. So I'm just gonna thicken up the ones I already have because I really don't have much on there right now. But girls are doing these where the shape is good, but they're so thick. Man, I don't even know how you girls do them so thick. It's so much product. So obviously tell the difference between too thick and too thin. Another thing I'm seeing right now is girls having the frown brow, which the shape of the brow is good, but the ends do this. So everything else is good, the arch is good, the length is good, and even if it's just slight, you'll see when I'm done that it really makes you look like you're frowning. So you don't want frown brow, you don't want to look sad. So if you cover this part up, the eyebrow actually looks pretty good. Then when you look like that, you're like, I'm so sad. Look how sad I look. Like not even moving my face versus this. So make sure that this part of your eyebrow is also very straight and it doesn't curve up at all, because then you get frown brow. So if you want to do a nice brow shape, let's shape the inside. So I just go from the inner corner out and I just draw a straight line right underneath that brow. Then I smooth up into the eyebrows. Then when I have not that much product on my brush, I'm going to smooth the inner corner. If you have too much product on your brush, that's when you're gonna end with too blunt of an inner brow. So make sure that there's not too much product on your brush. Then I'm gonna draw a parallel line on the top, right up to the arch, and then fill all of this in. So easy. So now either your brow could end too short, which is one of these, beep, where you don't take it out enough. And a lot of these mistakes happen when you girls don't have enough brow to work with, so you don't have guidelines. So that brow doesn't extend quite enough. The other thing that happens is that your brow extends too much and you end up like Nicole Kidman in Moulin Rouge and it's like way out here. Now if you're going for like a 30 style, that's great, perfect. If you're not going for a 30 style, that is crazy brow. I generally don't like my brow to extend too much farther than my wings, so they kind of end at the same point. I feel like that is the most flattering eyebrow. Totally is up to your face, but generally for most girls, ending it that far out is too much. So let's just take the little tail off of there. The shape actually isn't bad. So I'm just gonna go in, fill it in a little bit more, so it should end about there. And then I'm gonna fill in the arch and then smooth my little hairs. One little trick that you can use if you want extra sculpted brows is to use this High Brow by Benefit. And it's just a little sort of flesh colored pencil. And you can use this around the edges of your brows to sort of sculpt your brow out. I don't use it right underneath because I have white powder there and you won't even see it, but I only use it on the outer part of my brow and not on the inner. Because if you do it around your entire brow, your whole brow is gonna look like it's just like floating on your face. So just a little bit on the outer edges. Really, if I do this, I only do it for photo shoots just to really accentuate my brows further, because if you do it in person, you're not fooling anybody. You can still see it. I mean, it's still there, but it just helps for photo shoots, especially when the flash hits your face. It helps to keep your brows sculpted. Another trick I use is taking a pencil, just a pencil in a shade darker than my brows, and I draw just a little line right underneath my brows. Now this is really helpful for you, those of you girls that don't actually have hair where your eyebrows are. This will give you a sort of three-dimensional look. It's not gonna be so obvious on my brows because I do actually have hair where my brows are, but it helps to sculpt the brows out a little bit further. And then like I said, because I have unruly eyebrows, I use this eyebrow gel by Anastasia Beverly Hills to make sure everything stays in place. Ta-da! So that's it, brows are done. Hopefully you guys learned some things today about eyebrows. Those were kind of my best tricks, and especially doing makeup, they're kind of the things that I see the most often on people. If you guys want more do's and don'ts about anything specific when it comes to hair and makeup, definitely leave it in the comments below. Subscribe for more, and I will see you guys next time. Hey guys, thanks for watching my video, and be sure to check out these latest videos that I have posted, and also be sure to click the subscribe button and turn your notifications on so you can see the new shenanigans coming your way.